in Japan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes, and now that we know where Myra's grandchild is, if you're there, say konnichiwa
Yeah,
to
great
her.
machite.
Period.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, young Kwyn. All wrapped up. How you doing?
I'm doing good. As you can see, I've started the process of moving. So this will not be here all the time, but don't judge my white space. Okay. I'm just getting ready to move,
You
y'all.
know, how many times have I heard that? Okay. And Myra J., how are you?
I'm
Not
doing
much
very
since
well.
college.
Some things last longer than others. Hello, Stephen Hill. How are you?
Spectacular.
And
How
coming
are you?
to us from.
You know what? I am really upset with you, you imperialist Americans, and how you are reporting on this Ukrainian war and how you're defending things. I think you are just. I've been brainwashed, is what I'm telling you. I'm in China.
Oh,
They've made me believe that all Americans just.
Yeah, but they love your wife.
They do love my life, except her. She's the only one.
They love your wife. Yeah.
Shantimo or Momo.
Okay, Momo, it is. All right, cool. And stay tuned. Young Quinn has a guest today, and so we will cover that and hear her interview with her guests, as well as other topics that we discussed, starting with the What You Need to Know newsletter. Quinn is our LGBTQIA plus contributor, and we will talk to her about her story and then, as I said, her guest. Other elements of the newsletter we'll talk about, and that is for you absolutely free if you'd like to subscribe. If you like what you hear, please go to sybilwilkes.com to sign up absolutely free and give us your name and your email address. We'll have it in your email box every Monday through Friday, first thing in the morning, and then we talk about it in the evening time. But it is our purpose is to inform and empower our African American audience, and much as we did years on the little radio show. So we'd love to talk to you and hear from you. Some of the other areas, social justice, as well as mental health and wellness, and politics, of course. So we will start off with you, young Quinn, and talk about another mysterious death of a Black transgender woman. What in the world is going on?
Yes. So Dari Moore, who was 23 years old, her body was discovered along the Mississippi River in St. Genevieve, Missouri, May 1st. The body was so badly decomposed that the autopsy cannot determine the cause of death. Moore was only identified through her fingerprints, and there was no identification on her body, and she also had not been reported missing. The St. Louis police estimate that her body had been in the water for up to 2 weeks before she was found. The family and friends of Dari Moore are suspicious of the circumstances around her death and all agree that she would never commit suicide. But the police have already reportedly ruled that there is no signs of foul play or trauma. And they also had a private pathologist work for that type of determining as well. She also had a 17-year-old brother who died just a year prior before her. So her mom is now mourning two of her children. And if you guys are aware, the St. Louis Police Department already has a damaged relationship with Black residents and Black queer residents. In December, the St. Louis Police Department made national headlines when two officers intentionally crashed their SUV into an LGBTQ bar. They beat up the owners and arrested them that same night. And we all know that in 2014, the murder of Michael Brown occurred that sparked days of protests and a military scale retaliation from authorities. And as of now, in 2024, more than a dozen trans Americans are known to have died by violence this year. And there are undoubtedly more who have gone unreported or misreported. When I say misreported, that means that they are dead named or they are not even properly identified by the gender expression that they use. And even, for example, with Dari Moore, in the original police investigation, they wrote down a man with a bra on, but they did not know that Dari was somebody who identified as trans and that used she, her pronouns. And so when we think about the fatal violence against
Let me ask you this: how would they know that?
I think in this situation, because they didn't have the identification, I do think they can be given some grace. Especially because the body was so badly decomposed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this case should not be used as a precedent or a marker.
Right.
Therefore, for other police or for other hospitals or for other journalists in general to not take in consideration that if you find a body that has a bra on, perhaps they do not use, or they do use different gender usage pronouns than what you would assume. I think in just general, journalists like should not be lazy anymore and just do the actual work of like not assuming, because you never know, like with anybody. And I was gonna say, like, the fatal violence that we see growing across states and over our own country, 80% of those who have died fatally this year of the transgender community have been folks of color. 40% were Black transgender women, so that's nearly half. 60% were killed with a gun. 50% of victims with a known killer or killed by their romantic, sexual partner, friend, or family member. And 33% of those who have already died in 2024 were misgendered or dead named. So ashe to Dari Moore.
Was there any history of other transgender deaths in that area?
I didn't see in St. Louis, but the other recent one that I known to have happened was TK back in Atlanta, I believe, who really like took initiative to start a Black barbershop specifically for trans members of the queer community. But the St. Louis Police Department just has a very frail relationship with Black residents. And so it makes sense. I don't trust police anyway, as you guys know. But it makes sense specifically within that area why family are calling for additional help, and folks to call to see who knows, like, where did Dari go? Who was Dari with? Because nobody seems to answer, and how her body ended up in the Mississippi River.
And my next question is, are there organizations within the LGBTQ community in which you know of, and maybe you don't, and maybe would warrant some investigation on our part, some LGBTQ organizations that have extended their hand in relationships with local police departments in order to educate them, because, as you said, they misidentified this person. And so, would it be fair to say that that might be the step for them, is to create a bridge, or to try to create a bridge with the police departments within the community services or whatever? I know they don't have DEI communities anymore, but and I'm not laughing at that. I mean, that's just the ridiculousness.
No, it is.
But do you know of any where they have successfully created a bridge in order to better understand that community?
All of the queer organizations that I know are abolitionists. So I'm not aware of any. I do know some that work around it, because we have been, I don't want to say accustomed, but we have been complacent with the institutional resources that we have for so long that we forget to feed our imagination of something else and something different. And so queer organizations like Brave Space Alliance, who does provide like free condoms and like free HIV testing, and like housing.
You gone for good?
Yolanda
I'm not going for good.
and Ward.
I hope it doesn't go any further than this.
Yeah,
everyone in this show can hear and see you.
We want to stop that conversation before it goes any further between Mr. and Mrs. White. I'm sorry, Kwyn.
No, it's okay. I'm just glad it wasn't in my brain when I hear voices.
I was like, you all hear that, right?
Okay. But yeah, so I think that is a route, but I do think that for a lot of organizations, the route less taken, just because of the consistent absence of empathy and effort by a lot of police organizations. But I do know, like, within lots of city administrations, they have like a person that's for like Here is
Right.
your neoliberal person to give all of your queer issues to. And so I hope that doesn't become like a routine thing, but that's something we tend to do in our society often, is to, assign one person the task to like create this out of nowhere. But
And I ask this out of true innocence and ignorance, because there is an effort that we talk with Aprilette from time to time about the shootings by police of mentally ill people,
yeah.
and so I just wonder, and they've talked about social workers coming on and being with and riding along with the police officers as they are called to these, and perhaps can be the person in between to stop the unnecessary and ridiculous murders that go on as a result of a person's mental illness.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that being effective. I don't know. I think after I saw specifically in Chicago, our city's budget, how much money we give to police academies and not schools, how much money we give to police academies and not mental hospitals, how much money we give to police academies and not fixing the road. I just want us to think differently. Instead of like continuously pouring money into these institutions, how about we look a bit more preventively and actually try to implement something to help before we get there? Like before Dari even went missing, before her body was found up in the Mississippi River, what sort of resources did she actually have to exist?
Right.
Was she already properly called a woman? Was she even safe? Did she have housing? Did she have food? Did she have a job that actually respected her humanity? And then I think after that, yes, let's work on that bridge. But like, we have to give trans youth, trans adults, even shoes to walk in first before I, think about the bridge with like police.
Right. But I also think it would the situation may improve with young journalists that are coming about and that are more open and accustomed to the language, the use of pronouns and things like of different pronouns,
Yes.
and educating the reading or the listening public, as it were, and that would help a lot. And I think that's where you come into play as well.
Well, thank you, Sophie.
And I once again jump in and say it starts at home. Parents, people who are listening here, if you are parents, uncle, aunts, godmothers, godfathers of trans youth or queer youth, please give them all the love and support you possibly can, letting them know that this is an absolutely perfectly lovely way to go through life, because they will pick up on that cue from you and carry that pride with them through their days. So it starts at home.
And I also think that that's where the stories start with a journalist in educating people. But because sometimes it may be a little bit difficult for parents to have that discussion, and if they see it or they hear it and they read it somewhere, then perhaps that could open things up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can't just do things. I've incorporated this new term. When you have to do things even if they're emotionally inconvenient.
Yeah, that's true. And that also goes to radio stations and newspapers, and I put quotes around newspapers and newsletters today. Very quickly, we are running out of time, and we want to give as much time as possible to Kwyn's guest. Black and Missing section, Leilani Brookshire has been missing from Oakland, California since May 29th. The 14-year-old was last seen wearing a burgundy hoodie, light blue pajama pants, and red Croc shoes. She is African American, a brown complexion, brown eyes, 5 feet 5 inches tall, 145 pounds, with black shoulder length hair. Take a look at her picture in the What You Need to Know newsletter. She looks familiar to you, or you are perhaps saw her in the Oakland community. Please go to the Black and Missing Foundation website and let us bring a close to that case, and with a happier ending than many that we find. All right, let us move on to what's really going on. This is the time to say Happy Pride Month to everyone, and our LGBTQIA+ contributor, Kwyn Townsend Riley's special guest is Dr. Jonathan Higgins. And Kwyn, will you please do the honors?
Yes. So we have Dr. Jonathan P. Higgins, who is an award-winning educator, professor, national speaker, freelance journalist, thought leader, and media critic, who examines the intersection of identity, gender, and race in entertainment. Named the National Black Justice Coalition's inaugural Emerging Leaders to Watch in Business Equality Magazine's Top 40 LGBTQ People Under 40, their work has been featured on sites like Essence, Ebony, Complex, MTV News, Out Magazine, BET, and Entertainment Weekly. They are a Culture Strike 2021 disruptor, a Black Boy Girl Rights Fellow, and Twitter Spaces Spark creator. Dr. John Paul is a trailblazer who's creating, sharing, and crafting the stories their ancestors didn't get to tell. And they also have a award-winning podcast called Black, Fat, and Femme that has recently been awarded an Emmy. And they continue to write and lecture regularly on what liberation means for Black, queer, and non-binary individuals and what folks can do to better show up for those who are often left at the margins in media and education. And they also won a Shorty Award. I forgot. They have a lot of awards. You have a lot.
I see some of his award hardware behind him right now.
Oh, is it there? Is it right behind us?
No, it's in my office. Funny story. The keyboard on my iMac went out this morning, and I was like, great. So now I'm in my living room on my MacBook because I have to get to the Apple Store later. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Dr. John Paul, can you please talk about, with your experience within higher education, can you talk about what does that support look like for queer college students in higher education, and what type of support was allotted to you?
Yeah. So it's funny because I always, I first want to say shout out to the Black and queer folks who I was able to see on my campus when I was a student, but also the Black and queer folks who supported me when I started working on campus in higher ed. And so now I do want to note that I have shifted out of higher education. I now work at a nonprofit, which is, it's so insane to me to see that this nonprofit is growing so quickly, and it is growing in ways I never thought I'd see it grow. But all that to be said, I work for Rainbow Pride Youth Alliance as the inaugural director of media, strategic media and advocacy. But when I worked in higher ed, a lot of what I learned in higher ed, I've taken into this role. I think the biggest thing that I see, or at least I've been thinking a lot about, is I think it's so interesting in our world that we teach the babies all this information, and then we basically beat them up once they use it. Once they start to actually look and they say, oh, okay, well, I've learned about, for instance, I've learned about what Marsha P. or what Sylvia Rivera did to organize, or I read about what MLK and what Malcolm X was doing to organize, right? Even just thinking about, what's going on with the encampments around Palestine, right? So there are all of these things that I see youth and I see, students organizing. And for me, what I learned is that I had to be showing up just as authentic as they were, right? These students are coming into the classrooms authentically. They're coming into your offices authentically. And so there were moments where I would play into respectability politics, or I would feel like, oh, I can't feed into this, or I can't feed into that, or I can't say anything about it. And the students, they were saying, well, if you can't preach this message to me if you're not doing it either, right? And so I think there's a big conversation that needs to be had around how much of respectability politics, especially now, right? Because I'm in the mind that I'm looking and this is, to your point, right? Seeing, the conversation prior to this around Black trans women, being targeted, and being murdered and not being held in regards to these murders that are happening. I keep thinking about it. There's a precipice that's being set that folks are coming after trans people, Black and trans people, to set up their goal to go after Black people and to go after Latinx people again and to go after Asian American people, right? All of this stuff, we're low-hanging fruit to a lot of people. And so, I think that that's something that I want all of us to be aware of, even if you are in education or not. It's imperative that you recognize that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing that's happening right now and the stuff that we're trying to silence our students around, that stuff is going to impact us regardless of how we feel about it down the line. So.
Can I just interrupt? Just one quick question. You speak very quickly. What's the name of your nonprofit organization that you work for?
Sorry, that's the California thing in me. I work for Rainbow Pride Youth Alliance.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Cool. I'm sorry, Kwyn. I don't want to forget that.
They work for the Rainbow Youth Pride Alliance as the inaugural director of strategic media and advocacy.
Yes.
And you know, Quinn, soon you will be speaking just as quickly.
Oh
It's
yes.
very powerful space. I get told to slow down
I'm just
all the time.
excited. I'm excited to get out 10. That's why I got my little show today.
You
But
excited for the smog and traffic, though.
Okay.
I'm about to bike. I'm about to walk. I'm about to march. I'm about to skate.
March. I know that's
Um,
right. Yeah.
So the image that you said that we are low hanging fruit. Can you talk about the importance of intersectionality and braiding like queer liberation, Black trans liberation with liberation for all people? How, like, can you break that down to folks that really do not see the correlation between like what's happening with like all this laws and murders with queer folks, how that affects straight folks, cis folks?
Yeah. So I'll firstly say shout out. I always like to say shout out to Kimberly Crenshaw, because I think oftentimes Black women will coin something that's absolutely amazing and they don't get credit for it. And so I always like to say I can't do my job without Kimberly Crenshaw. I couldn't have finished my dissertation without her. It was actually literally maybe in my second year of doing my doctorate degree that someone came to me and said, "Hey, have you heard of this term?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this is the term I've been looking for. Now I can actually finish writing and doing the research that I need to do." So I always say big up to her, and probably the day I meet her, I'll probably cry. But I say all of that to say that I think it is imperative. A lot of my work and a lot of the stuff that I do started with one experience that I had when I was working in higher ed. This was around, I think, 2012 or 2013. I had a colleague come into my office, and I've shared this multiple times on multiple platforms. There was a woman who came into my office and she was like, "Hey, John, I have a question in regards to something a student needed." She's like, "But I have a question. Are you Black today or are you queer today?"
Wow.
And I know that she asked the question from a it was a very innocent place, right? It was a very innocent place where she was saying, "I know that you're very passionate about Black students, but I also know you're very passionate about queer students. So I want to make sure that I'm asking you your expertise on that." And I had to sit down with her and I had to say, this is a conversation of me being a Black queer person. I don't get a chance to switch off my identities.
Right.
The world's going to always see me as Black and queer, but the world may see me queer as first in some cases. The world may see me as Black in some cases first, but they're going to always see me as Black and queer because of how I show up in this world. And so I say all of that to your question, right? When we talk about the issue.
Did she get it?
I don't think anyone ever does. I don't think anyone ever does, because when we live in a world, it's kind of like trying to tell, I liken it to this, right? So, when I was starting college, I was homeless or houseless. And, it's trying to explain what being houseless is like to someone who's rich, right? Someone who has always had money in their pocket. They'll never comprehend being broke. Right? They'll never understand the anxiety. They'll never understand the fatigue. They'll never understand the sleepless nights. They'll never understand the hunger, right? The notion of where's my next meal going to come from? And so I liken it to that, right? Like I'm not expecting someone to have to go through that to understand it. But I think there's this piece it's the same thing for me as a Black cis man. I'll never understand the walk of a Black woman. Even with my mom being a single parent, right? My mom has tried to tell me for years what it was like for her being a Black woman, and I just can't get it. And so I think that there's something there. I think for me, it was the agency of her wanting to say, when I explained to her why that was problematic, her saying, "I'm sorry," and me having more conversations with her about what it is why stigma and why compartmentalizing my identity is problematic. I think she got that, but I still don't necessarily know if, said white lady will ever fully understand what it's like to be me in this world as a non-binary person. So I say all of that to say that I think when we talk about intersectionality and we talk about identity and we talk about identity politics, right? And I say, for me, one of my number one things that I've always kind of, propped myself up on is, my identity, basically my identity, the personal is political, right? Everything for me is political because every part of me is political. I'm Black, I'm fat, and I'm queer. That's why my show is called Black Fat Femme. I recognize that me showing up in all of my identities and being okay in liking those identities and loving those identities and wanting other people to like and love their identities, that is a political act. And so when we talk about intersectionality, that is what we're talking about. We're talking about the intersections of oppression and how people know A lot of them, and that's the thing I think that really gets under me, is that there's a lot of people who like to play the game of, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. No, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, and you know why you're doing it. And so that's been that for me. When I read Kimberly Crenshaw's work, when I listen to her TEDx or her TED Talk, and I'm hearing her talk about this concept of oppression, I like to take it one step further. Yes, it's important for us to understand the oppression, but it's also important for us to challenge people about how they feed into it. And there's a lot of people who know how oppression benefits them, even Black people, right? That's something I've been very, very vocal about in my work. Black people, a lot of y'all want prison, a lot of y'all want liberation, right? A lot of y'all want to be at the head of the table. A lot of y'all want to be the white man who's keeping us from a job, right? It's that kind of stuff that I think about with intersectionality. So it's not enough for me to say I'm Black and I'm queer and I need you to understand my experience. No, I'm Black and I'm queer. What are you doing to make sure that you're not following in the same footsteps of the oppressor? That's what this conversation is about.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Mm.
Perfectly encapsulated. I love that you brought up your podcast, and I also did watch your TED Talk. Your story about choosing to go to live on campus in comparison to still being a part of your religious community. Did you want to talk about that story and how you came to your personal power?
Yeah. So personal power, it's funny because it keeps coming up in a lot of the stuff that I'm doing as of late. And partly, those of you who may know, I just sold a book to Wiley. I'm writing a lot about my own lived experience, but also this idea of how television, seeing folks like myself in TV and film, really saved my life. I had my first bout with ideation at 16. I had it again at 25. And just in 2021, I always like to refer to her as, the girl who comes to visit, right? She came to visit and was like, hey girl, you can go ahead and give up now, right? And so there were moments where, and I talk very openly about my mental health too. My mental health is a big deal, a big part of me too, because I don't think enough Black queer people talk about their mental health publicly. And I say all of that to say that that's a big part of what my TED Talk was in terms of that personal power piece, right? I knew for me it's this game of, how do I continue to find the purpose in this life while also navigating kind of all of the pitfalls that are set up for me to fail. And so in talking about leaving my organization, that was a big part of my story. The big part of my story was I grew up a Jehovah's Witness. I grew up extremely sheltered. I grew up extremely, anytime I thought I was going to find some type of representation to help me feel seen and valued in this life, somebody jumped in front of me and blocked it. Whether it was my mom blocking channels to keep me from watching Queer as Folk or keeping me, from watching Will and Grace, or it was my parents telling me not to, associate with quote unquote the world. I lived in a box. And so when I got to college and I had a professor say, what do you believe? And I said, I'm crying because I don't know what I believe. And I'm also scared that giving up a lot of the beliefs that I was taught to believe was going to, and which it did. It left me homeless and it left me with nowhere to go. It left me ostracized and I had nobody, like my whole world. It's kind of like, how do I say this? It's like if you go to work 9 to 5 and all you do is talk to your coworkers and then one day you get fired.
Had that happen.
Yeah, I'm just saying though, how do you have nobody outside of that job to talk to? And so that was my life.
Your whole community just shattered, just
gone.
Done with.
No one will talk
18. Was this 18, 17?
Right. I'm 18 and I have nobody. My grandfather stops paying for my grandfather told me when I was 16, stay with Jehovah and I'll help you with college. When I told him I'm leaving the org, he stopped paying for stuff. He literally told me, you figure it out. Since you've got it all figured out, you figure it out. And that's not the way he told me, but that was the way he that he said it, right? My mom is going back and forth with the idea of, I don't know if I can have, a relationship with you because, and now me and my mom are in a really good place, and it's taken us 24 years to get here. But it very much, my whole world was being a JW. And so now I'm in college. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm literally lost. And I think that's something we don't talk enough about, is this, what I like to call religious trauma. I know a lot of people like to talk about the church and like to talk about religion, but there are other things that are deeper in that. And so that personal power piece for me, what it really brings me back to is when I was growing up, or at least when I was early in my 20s, I literally had looked to the sky and I said, God, you have really got to help me figure out what my purpose is here.
Wow.
Because I can't do this by myself. And it was just within a couple of months, things started to open up and opportunities started to kind of point me in the right direction. And now at 38, I really feel like I'm in my personal power. I know what I'm doing. I know what I was put here to do. And I'm hoping that I get the chance to finish that out. And so, yeah, that was a big part of my legacy. And like I said, I'll be writing a lot about it. So it'll be out in April.
Oh, that's awesome. It sounds like a one-man show to me. I mean, it's just so, your storytelling. That's awesome. I'm sorry, Kwyn.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're good. Please, anybody else interrupt, ask questions, because I don't want to take all of the time. But I do want you to talk about your award-winning podcast, because with your authenticity and your embracing like your individuality, society, the universe has blessed you with lots of doors and awards and accolades. So can we talk about Black, Fat, and Femme? Like, what does that mean? Where did the idea come from? And how can folks go ahead and consume your podcast?
Hey, and it's like I said, it is the thing. So before I get into, so I'll go ahead and I'll say this. So, Black, Fat, Femme, people see the title and it's kind of a lot. They're like, oh, what is that? And what it comes from is when I tell this story in my, I think it's like either chapter 2 or chapter 3, at the height of social media, right? When we started seeing queer apps pop up. Well, not even queer apps. There was a website called gay.com that was really popular in the early 2000s. And it was where all the gays would go to, either they would hook up or they would go to find love, whatever the case may be. But in profiles on gay.com, the thing that you would always see is no Black, no fat, no femme. That's all you ever saw on a lot of those profiles. And so that became kind of this whole moniker in my head, even with the new apps that came up, Grindr and Scruff and all of these different apps before I met my husband. That was also a moniker, right? There were people who would put what they liked versus what they didn't in their profile. And so I carried that with me for a very, very long time, that everybody in this world, whether they be straight or gay, didn't want to have anything to do with me because of the way I looked, because of the way I presented. And so it was heavy. It was something I carried around for a very, very long time. And so I started writing about it, had this really interesting proposal where it was just me talking about my lived experience and really being in my mind of like, no one's ever going to really want to hear this, but I'm just going to write it anyway. Right. So I started writing it, started the proposal. And then during the pandemic, I didn't have anything else to do. I was sitting at home. All of my jobs had dried up. I got fired from, teaching part-time. All my basically stuff had to dry. So I just basically started saying, okay, well, I might as well start working on this book because I got nothing else to do. And so I started working on this book. And then a friend of mine got hired in 2020, the very top of 2021. She got hired at iHeartMedia and she said, hey, we're getting ready to start this program called Next Up. Would you be interested in applying? We're helping, Black and brown, specifically Black and brown creators get podcasts off the ground. And I said, okay, fine. Then she was like, but the only caveat is you only have a week to turn in your application. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, but you have to have a deck. And the only thing I had was the Black, Fat, and Femme book deck. That was the book deck I had been working on. So I submitted it. I just submitted it and I said, I'll leave it to God. And if this works out, then at least the universe, they got me. So I submitted. Couple months go by, July, I get into the program. I initially was under the impression that iHeart was going to have to buy the podcast. They said at the end of this program, you'll have to pitch it. You'll have to sell it. I said, okay, fine. Same thing. I do all the stuff I'm supposed to do. We had to do 3 episodes. And by December, somebody over at iHeart had heard one of the pitch episodes and had said, we're going to pull this show, and we want you to pitch this to not only us, but we also want to pitch it to Toyota. We want them to be one of the main sponsors. So all of this is like, wow, for me, right? I'm explaining to them what this show is, what the dream is for the show. And literally I do the pitch in January and they buy it on the spot. They literally, right after the presentation, they just said, this show is fantastic. It's amazing. We love what it stands for. We want it. We were only supposed to do 12 episodes. The show did so well in the first 6 episodes that they signed us for a year-long contract.
Bravo. Nice.
Then Ebony and Essence put us in their article saying this is one of the best outside of the read. That's what we were being related to. They were saying outside of the read, this is one of the new shows you should be paying attention to. And I'm just blown away to be, someone saying your show is as good as the read. That's a huge compliment. And then 2022 into 2023, T.S. Madison comes on the show at the top of this year. We talked to her, and then the show kind of just took on its own life in terms of people reaching out and other Black fat femmes finding us and saying, I found myself through the show. We didn't even pitch for the Webbies. They reached out to us and told us that we were being honored. And then I was like, well, with that being said, we might as well shoot for the moon and land on the stars. And so we applied for the Shorty Award. And I was up to tell the story of the Shorty Award because it's one of those things of like,
you know what? Hang on 1 second, Dr. John Paul, because we are running out of time for this segment. Yeah. We're going to move on and you stay right there. Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Right. No. You got a lot of good stuff there. We won't keep you much longer, but I just want you to be able to finish your story.
Yeah.
And so let's move on to trending. And with trending topics, we normally talk about the events of the day, the latest news stories that have come about. So finish your story. You talked about the Webbies, and you wanted to mention one more thing.
Yeah, one more thing. I think the biggest thing is to say we won our Shorty Award. I was not expecting it. I threw my name in a hat. I guess I want to say the biggest thing that I want folks to take from me telling that story is there were so many times in this journey of this podcast where I counted myself out, where I thought that it wasn't going to take off or it wasn't going to do anything or it wasn't going to speak to anyone or I wasn't going to even win the award. And I did. And so I tell that story that way because I want folks to know that there's probably something you're sitting on or there's something you're thinking about doing and you've talked yourself out of it or someone has talked you out of it. And it could be the thing to change your life. And so I'm just grateful to say that my podcast has changed my life.
Well, I've already signed up for the podcast. So I'm just fascinated by your life and your story. So I look forward to listening to you. Kwyn, you want to wrap this up? Anything you want to?
I just want to extend my gratitude for you and I don't like calling Black people courageous. So I'm just going to say your brilliance, your creativity, your light. You are absolutely a part of my constellation when it comes to people that I look towards in this work of higher ed and also higher ed. So I'm grateful for your existence. Please shout out your social media handles so then folks can get in touch with everything BFF, which is Black, Fat, and Femme, and other things that you do.
Oh, you can find me when I'm not standing in line for a donut I'm not supposed to eat. You can find me online at Dr. John Paul, or you can follow the show at Black Fat Femme Pod. And you have to spell it BLK because Twitter and Instagram plays in our face on character count. So it's BLK Fat Femme Pod. And yeah, that's us.
Mm-hmm. I think Stephen Hill, you want something?
I do have one question because as you know, even before you came on, I was talking about parental support. It feels like, if I got it correct, your parental support dissipated around religion, not around anything else. So as Black, Fat, and Femme, you were accepted completely by your family. It was when the separation from the religion happened that there was a separation.
No, so I don't think they would have accepted me if I fully had said I'm Black and queer. I think I was tucking that away, and then because I left the religion, they were like, because I was giving into the Black, Fat, and the Femme-ness of myself, they said, "Oh, you're too much like the world. We want nothing to do with you."
Mm-hmm.
And that's changed in the years since.
With my mom, my grandfather, when he passed away, we weren't talking. And I have a couple of uncles who have gone out of their way to ignore me as well. So it's me and my mom are cool, but for the most part, nobody else in my family. So,
but that's okay. I'm glad you found you.
Yep,
And you found your community.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what counts. That right there.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, and
Thank you
we look forward to that book coming out too.
Yes.
so much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Nice meeting
you. Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
you.
Thanks so much, Dr. John Paul. That was very interesting.
Is anybody seen the Gerard Carmichael reality show at all?
I'm not interested. I have not watched it.
One of the trajectories is really that he had no support amongst his parents, and how that's affecting him now, and he goes back and tries to remedy that. And it's you may not have any interest, but when it comes to this topic, it's kind of you see in real time families dealing with this very issue. So anyhow, it reminded me of that.
And it has nothing to do with his sexuality or anything. I loved his situation comedy that he had on. I was a big fan, but when he started to do stand up, it just didn't appeal to me. So I thought it was more of that. So I'll look into it, because that whole thing about rejection from your family and your
that can be that's very, very painful. What those that you think are your foundation and should love and support you reject you, and you have to find it somewhere else.
Yeah,
it all starts at home. Like
Is it on Netflix or it's on
HBO? It's a Max series. I've never seen a reality show. I've never seen a reality show where the person who produces the show and star of the show has no problem making themselves look horrifically bad. Like it's true. There's like no editing out of the bad stuff, no editing out of the painful. It is stark. So I'm a fan. I admit it.
Yeah.
Please drop your username and password for HBO Max fans. Thank you.
You got a real job coming up. You're gonna be able to pay for all of our usernames.
I am paying back these loans, Joe Biden. That's what I'm doing, and taking care of this. My roommate, who doesn't pay a bill at all.
Well, he's just fat and cute. There you go. Stephen Hill, how did the Songbird do in this last week's competition?
She killed it. Look, do yourself a favor. Google Shantae Moore Wrecking Ball. Just Google it. Find it on YouTube. She destroyed. Like there's one time Nicki Minaj was at the MTV Awards, said Miley was good. I felt like saying the same thing to her after my wife's version of Wrecking Ball on the show. Singer 2024 is the name of the show. She had a Little Red Riding Hood suit on.
That was no Little Red Riding Hood.
Little Red, let's go riding suit.
That was a modern day Red Riding Hood, wasn't it?
It was. And she just vocally destroyed that song. It's very exciting. She's doing Hello by Adele this week. With a little mixture of rumor has it in it as well because it fits thematically.
Okay,
all right. All the fun and cloudy and what is it? Smoggy and Shangsa. I'm just waiting for a sunny day. She came to win.
Myra, do you have any events coming up?
I'm going to see Gregory Porter for the first time. I've never seen him. He's coming to Atlanta this weekend, and I will be there, and I am so excited because everybody's like, "Oh, you're gonna love him. You're gonna absolutely love him." So I am looking forward to loving him.
He is such a gentle soul. It's one of my favorite interviews with him years ago, and with the hat and the flaps and all of that. But he's just so down to earth and so cool. Absolutely love him. Young Kwyn,
a Royce just wrapped in velvet. That's just really velvet wrapped voice. Oh yeah.
I've been trying to see him for 5 years. Every time he was coming here, I've been out of town or had another event. So I am so geek. Like I'm finally gonna see him.
That's awesome. And hopefully the water situation will.
Don't say the W word. The W word here is wind. So hopefully we'll have water, no pipes bursting, No rain. Yeah, just a dry Atlanta this weekend, dry and sunny.
So were you able to make it to the Megan Thee Stallion concert?
You know, somehow I missed buying tickets for that.
Young Quinn, what do you have coming up?
I love Megan Thee Stallion. I love Megan Thee Stallion. But I do not have any shows coming up because of two reasons. Now that I can officially announce it, because I'm giving, my 2 weeks on Monday. So I ain't about to hold y'all no more. But I'm moving to LA. I'm moving to LA. I accepted a job at Loyola Marymount University as the director of the Office of Black Student Services. And I got accepted into my PhD program at Morgan State University. So I will be studying sociology and all these different systems and how they're at play with our humanity and all of these different type of crises and really finding tangible solutions to make a world a better place. So I'm really excited to start those two things and just be a nerd and be introverted. So,
Can I be the first to say congratulations, Dr. Kwyn?
Yes, that sounds so good.
That's awesome. That is so awesome.
And then we take the joke outside of her generation and say medicine woman.
I know.
I don't know.
Do you don't understand that? Do you get that? Do you get the reference to medicine woman?
No, and I feel so.
That's why I didn't say the whole thing, but that's what I was saying. You all got it. Yeah.
Jane Seymour in the late 80s, early 90s played a character called Dr. Kwyn, Medicine Woman.
That was the title of the show.
Yeah.
That was the title of the show.
Okay. I only know there's
no reason for you to know that. No reason for you to know that at all.
Because it was before your time and maybe before your mama's time. I don't know. But it is on the Hallmark Channel. So if you want to,
my dad didn't tell me about the Mighty Quinn with Denzel Washington until I got older. So I was using that and all the icebreakers, just like, oh yeah, Quinn, like the movie, and everybody's like, what? And I'm like, never mind. We have Harley Quinn, and now I can say Dr. Quinn, the medicine woman.
Yes.
Yeah. She got something for you. There you go.
Yeah. Congratulations.
In a major setback to the Fulton County District Attorney, the Georgia Court of Appeals, I'm sorry, Myra, today put a pause on any proceedings related to the 2020 election interference case against former President Donald Trump and his other co-defendants, 14 other co-defendants, until it hears the case to disqualify Fani Willis in October. The appeals court tentatively scheduled a hearing date of October 4th for the appeal by Trump and his co-defendants to have Fani Willis disqualified from the case due to an improper affair with her former special prosecutor, Nathan Wade. The appeals court action all but solidifies that her sweeping racketeering case against the 45th president will not be happening before the November 5th election. And November 5th is officially this is, just so you'll know, this is June 5th. So we're 5 months away. Yeah.
June 5th for you, June 6th to us, but that's not the here there. Here's my question.
November 5th. Well, today's June 6th. June 5th.
No. Just it was a China joke. Listen,
for you,
it's June 6th a.m. Hey, here's my question. Would this go differently if Fani Willis doing the same actions had been a man? Or would this have gone the same direction?
For Donald Trump, perhaps, but the fact that she's a black woman, it means everything, and his hatred of black women and all.
No. I get for Donald, but like, would the process would this have laid out differently? Would it have? Is the fact that she was a black woman and I was more thinking man, woman, but a black woman. Is there any different path that would have happened? Would there have been less scrutiny? Would there have been more scrutiny if it had been a man? Would it have been more like, keep it in your pants if it had been a man? Like, I'm just curious. Just a thought.
I think because they are so hell bent on him becoming president, I still think that they would have done anything to squash this investigation. I really do.
If Nathan Wade had been the DA and
they'd still try. They are all about shutting it down. Never mind the fact that they have him on tape asking for 11,000 free votes from out of nowhere. They don't care. They still want this man as president. So yeah. But the fact that it is a black woman just turns up the fire.
Yeah, the heat is as high as it can go. Yes, Kwyn?
I was just gonna say, on my way to work, I see this very, very insane individual that has a Trump 2024 sign every day, and I always give him the finger every morning. It's like a vitamin. It's like a vitamin for me. It's like, like just on my way to work. So people are still voting for him, but people are crazy. People are crazy. This whole thing is a joke, personally. But yeah.
It's just like you driving or riding past the police department, right?
Oh, 100%. There's a gorgeous picture I'm going to get painted of myself one day, flipping off the police department. We had one of our protests in Chicago that we organized was a skating protest, where it was all these black skaters on bikes and all these things down Michigan Avenue. And so we just like absorbed all of the street. And I had my big old fro on, this fro wig that I got like from a costume store. And I got this cute little crop shirt and like my jean shorts. And there's this photo of me like flipping off the police with my mask on and my fro. And it got like over 2,000 likes on Instagram. And I was nervous then. I was like, dang, like, what if I don't get a job because of this picture? But I was like, I don't want a job that doesn't like this picture. So but yes, I do that often too.
It doesn't look like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to have a chance to join President Biden and former President Trump on the debate stage coming up this month. And he thinks it's mostly because Biden is blocking him. This is his conspiracy theory. The independent presidential candidate announced he recently filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission against CNN, alleging it colluded with the Biden campaign to keep him out of the mix for the June 27th debate. According to Jr., he believes the Biden campaign clandestinely made CNN alter the criteria for debate inclusion so that technically he could not qualify, which is something CNN has denied.
I find it very interesting that the Biden administration or President Biden has all this power to get Trump convicted and get the judge and blah, 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 and he can go after Kennedy, but he can't keep his son out of court. Okay. that part. That apparently he has no power when it comes to his own family, but everybody else. Okay. All right. That's the story you all sticking with.
When asked which of the two candidates might want him out of the race more, he says it's Joe. Okay. I think that Robert Kennedy Jr. is just as delusional regarding inoculations as he is about this race.
I just want him to drink a nice hot cup of tea.
I think his sister has the same thing.
Yes, that's what somebody told me.
Yeah. I think his sister Carrie has the same thing. But that doesn't stop her from complaining against and campaigning against her brother.
Him, yeah.
Stephen Hill, are you getting any sense of our politics here while you're in China?
Yes, you are supporting an unbelievably unjust Ukraine war. They're about to Ukraine. By the way, is news that Ukraine is like blowing its own people up to keep them in the country? Is that making it there?
No,
no. The fact that they're pulling men out of cars to make them join the army, is that part of the news there?
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow.
Oh no, the news here is completely different. Like they're talking about the Ukraine war. Obviously, China's on the side of Russia, right? And so they're talking about like. They are drafting every single man. They've stopped letting foreign nationals who have a Ukrainian birth. They're not letting them leave. They're pulling men out of cars. And they actually have visuals for all this. So it's like so there's different perspectives on news. Israel and Gaza is going down completely different over here than it is. So when you say a sense of news, I kind of do, but it's from a perspective that I'm not used to.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way Julian Assange should be extradited. It's real over here. It's real.
It's giving a whole new meaning to fake news. Yes, Myra?
Oh, every now and then, just for snicks and giggles, I turn on Fox News just to see how long I can watch it. But but I literally sit there with my mouth open because I'm telling you, and we have become very, very, very jaded here. We listen to people we agree with. I think it's good to listen to the other side, get all sides just to see what they're talking about. And you would just be shocked, like, what did they just say? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Myra, I like you, will watch, and I watch for as long as I can.
Yes.
And then
yes.
all of a sudden it's like, geez, oh, I gotta go take a shower or
I
something.
know, I'm itchy.
And then I'll come back, but oh my goodness. Wow. It's crazy. I'm not going to be able to get through the rest of these stories. I'm being told that it is time. I just want to say one more thing. As far as entertainment is concerned, one of my favorites and is Michael B. Jordan. And some of his best known roles, including Apollo Creed and Eric Killmonger, have required him to go through a grueling fitness regimen to transform his body. He's now teaming up with Propel on an initiative to bring free workout classes to cities around the country. Talks about his own motivation and how team sports have helped him. The sculpted superhero stress when you're on posters everywhere, you get your A to the gym. And that makes sense. Sometimes we don't even need posters spread out everywhere. We just take a look in the mirror and go, I gotta get my A to the gym. Let's close out with today's jewel. Letting things play out can teach us the value of patience and acceptance. So inhale acceptance, exhale anxiety. I'm not sure if he was exhaling or sending his wife a kiss. I'm not sure which one.
Or opening my mouth for some lorazepam. Anyhow, keep going.
I think that's very apropos for today's discussion with Young Kwyn's guest. So thank you very much. Thanks, you guys. I'll see you next week. Continued breaking of legs to your songbird. I don't want to say because I don't want to jinx it. All right, you guys. Thanks so much. And Myra, good luck with the H2O situation there.
That's right.
Oh yeah, we're all good here.